Welcome everybody. Welcome in. See everyone connecting right now. As you're coming in, please feel free to type in your name into the chat, where you're, oh, I see, sorry, I was just checking the chat right there, where you're tuning in from, and maybe your top character strength or a character strength you value. We'd love for you to add that in while we're waiting. We'll get started in a few minutes. So welcome again. And my colleague Sarah is joining as well, and she'll be supporting in the chat. And so, Sarah, do you mind offering that prompt in the chat? Just where are you tuning in from, your name, and maybe your top character strength or a character strength you really appreciate or value or want to use today? Nice. I see people coming in already. We've got Egypt represented. Ohio, Florida, New Zealand. Wow, amazing. And we've got more people joining. So again, we'll start in just a minute, but thank you. I always love seeing where everybody is tuning in from and just the absolute breadth and beauty of that. And we'll get started in about 30 seconds or so. Welcome. Nice. I see Italy, Malta, Scotland, all across the states. Arizona, that's where I was born. Hello, the person from Tucson. Awesome. It's beautiful. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and hop in and get started because we have a lot we want to talk about today and go through. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. I'm Alicia Powers. I am the Director of Instructional Design here at Veeva Institute on Character. And I'm just so excited to be here with you all today and that you're able to join us. I want to go over a couple housekeeping items before we get started. You'll notice that everybody is on mute. But we have the chat open and the question and answer open. So please feel free to participate. That way we would love to hear you, love to see you. Video can be on. Really appreciate seeing your faces. And if you have any question at any time, again, my colleague Sarah will be in the chat supporting, and we'll do our best to answer those. An additional piece is, we would invite you to enable your captions, and you can do a translation on captions as well, if that would be helpful. Sarah will put those steps into the chat. But with that, let's just go ahead and get started. I am so excited about today's webinar where we're focusing on the strengths effect, or how consultants are rebuilding meaning at work. We're going to really dive in and explore how strengths-based practices are helping individuals, leaders, teams, organizations, workplaces really reconnect with purpose and build meaning, and how consultants specifically are leading that change, both with insight and science, and hopefully, most importantly, with heart. So the stories and strategies you're going to hear today come from our panelists, from their real world experiences and lessons learned from either the workplaces at their best program or in practice of it. So I'm equally, if not more, excited to introduce our panelists today. They're three remarkable leaders who are just putting this work to action in powerful ways. And so first I want to introduce Mavalynne Orozco-Urdaneta, who is an organizational development consultant, CEO of Stamina in Action, and a VIA faculty member who works at the intersection of strength science and mission-driven impact. Mavalynne, thank you for being here. Secondly, I would love to introduce Dr. Joe Sage, who is a physician and a coach focused on helping medical teams build strengths-based culture so they can practice great medicine and live authentically. Hey, Joe, glad you're here with us. And finally, Meredith Meyer, who is an executive coach and former chief talent officer with previous leadership roles at Procter Gamble, KnowledgeWorks, and Veeva Systems, who is just really focusing on a sharp lens on leadership, talent, and human potential. Meredith, really glad you're here with us today, too. So, I want to go into a little bit, just very briefly, about our Workplaces at Their Best program to give a little context. So, you can kind of see some of the statistics and information. What's always striking to me is that we just launched in quarter 4 of 2024, and already we've had individuals join us from over 10 countries and 11 states, and we have 30 and counting. We have a current cohort going on right now of individuals who are working through their certification. And almost more beautiful to me is the beauty of building up a larger community together. And we have individuals representing over 11 different unique industries and work. And so, what we have just discovered and found is that communal education and connection is so powerful. So, with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And we're going to go into and begin. We're just going into the heart of it. So, Mavalynne, and right now I think Sarah is spotlighting, so let us know if you can see us right here. I think we're good. So, Mavalynne, Joe, Meredith, I want to start and ask you, what challenge or question were you considering that drew you to work more intentionally with character strengths and join Workplaces at Their Best? So, Meredith, I hope it's okay if I just start with you.
Sure, I'm happy to take the lead. So I found workplaces at their best when I was transitioning from a leadership role at a tech company and thinking about going back into consulting. And I had consulted in the past between other roles, but it had been a little bit disconnected, and I wanted some consistency, and I also wanted to combine the strategy work that I was doing with culture building. And I felt like I needed a language that everyone who's involved in the processes that I was facilitating could share. And strengths presented a great way for people to have a language to get through relationship building, conflict, in a positive, strengths-based way using that lens. I have to admit that I came to it because I have worked quite a bit with CEOs who are short on time and sometimes short on patience. I came in a little bit skeptical of strengths because it is just the the lens of strengths is I was worried it was soft, and it was emotionally driven, and I was working with people who are really hard nosed. And I have to say that I've been really surprised and excited by how strengths can crack people open. Like when we use strengths and have those discussions, even people who are skeptical at the beginning start getting into the idea of these are the character strengths that I have both at work, and I love how you can take the strengths home with your family and out in the community and really in all aspects of your life. So it ended up being a perfect language for me to build culture alongside some of the planning work that I do as my core business.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Meredith. I heard a couple really powerful points. One, that common language, right, is so critically powerful, and that was something. But I also really appreciated the skepticism you named. I think that is not uncommon. And I'd love to turn it over to Joe or Mavalynne. What resonated with you on that? Was any something similar, maybe different? How did that show up for you as well?
Yes, that resonates with me definitely, because in my case, it was more with all the disconnect and disharmony in the world. I was trying to find other ways to be part of the solution and not contribute to the problem. And I've always been very honored to work with other people because no one can really do anything worthwhile by themselves. So I think that I was more like looking for a community that spoke my language of positive psychology and strengths-based consulting, and the workplaces at their best certification course really looked like the best next step for me to incorporate those tools to see how else I can contribute to the organizations I work with, to the clients, and also to myself. What else can I learn to be better, work better, activate my own strengths better, and broaden this wonderful community and this wonderful network of like minded people who also speak the language of strengths.
Beautiful, Mavalynne. I really heard inside of what you were saying about that, contributing to the solution instead of the problem, and really the power of community together. I've been able to personally witness that and watch as our consultants have been able to work together, work on different projects and learn from each other. So that was beautiful. Thank you. And Joe, same for you. What challenge or question were you considering that kind of helped you move you that way? Or did something that Mavalynne or Meredith particularly feel resonant?
Yeah, thank you. I think, and hey everyone. Actually, I kind of just connect with what both Meredith and Mamalene said in that, I started doing strengths on my own at work because work is pretty stressful and can be grim in the healthcare world. So I was doing a lot of like personal regulation, but I do a lot of work on teams because like Mavalene said, like you can't really do anything fun in a hospital without a team of people. And so the strength language really does just provide an easy way to like boost up the morale of the people on your team and increase engagement and get them to buy into the work. And so that's kind of how I came about it as well.
Yeah, I'm hearing from all of you maybe this need too for community. That you may have been seeing that kind of need for connection, the need to be able to find a space where we do share lines of similarity, right? And I hear that within that common language thread that you're naming. So I really appreciate that. And thinking of that, I kind of wanted to dive in a little bit even deeper to that. Really want to look at the changes that maybe resulted, in being a part of that program. So I'm wondering, and maybe Mavalynne, you could start us off. How have character strengths or the strategies, tools, the practices that you learned in workplaces at their best help work, enhance your own workplace meaning or for those you support?
It has been a fabulous addition to my toolbox. I think I heard Meredith say something about that strengths have a soft language, which is really an ambivalence. A strength is soft, and it is something that we as consultants and coaches we do face with our clients. When it is real, when you're working with a CEO and in their signature strengths, they get love and kindness. And you can actually hear their discontent because that's not what they wanted to have. I mean, they would have preferred to have leadership, bravery, perspective. But one of the things that we teach and share is that strengths are not prescriptive, they're descriptive. They just show us how we truly are. And that's what starts giving us an understanding of what can give meaning into our life. So we can really align our actions to who we are. And navigating and helping these clients understand that love is not a marshmallowy strength. It actually is made of iron and steel because it is very difficult to activate and exercise love and kindness, even in the face of adversity, or sometimes when people or situations are not deserving of it, but it is the best strategy for the moment. So it is a revelation and inspirational, and it is truly beautiful when this resistance starts to disappear and individuals start to embrace who they truly are, which is the beginning of having a meaningful and fulfilling and purposeful life. So this work with strengths is extremely powerful. And this course gave me additional models and strategies and tools and vocabulary to be able to work in a more robust and strong way with my clients and the organizations that I serve.
Yeah, thank you, Mavalynne. I think what a powerful point too, right? Of, and I think as you said, Meredith was already naming that. I think when you go to into corporate language or corporate scenarios and situations, right, you can see certain strengths with a bias, and interpret even the work in general, as not something that is maybe hitting ROI, right, or what you're looking to achieve. And so I think Meredith, I'd love to turn to you on that and ask, how did you go from that kind of skeptical place, right, to a place of
Mhm.
seeing and embracing the strengths?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, exactly what Mavalynne said. I feel like seeing that transformation in someone is really a beautiful thing when you have someone who's really skeptical and all of a sudden they embrace it. I think that's one piece of it. I also just watching teams in particular do strength spotting and calling out each other's strengths and seeing how that could flip a room. I mean, of high level leaders from stressed and kind of, nipping at each other a little bit to celebrating each other to seeing strength. I mean, it literally can change the whole mood of a room and prepare people and kind of ground them in the space to do other deeper work. I think that was really that practice is really powerful for me. And I also felt like I've had a personal transformation. I mean, I would say not necessarily during the course, it certainly started there, but then I started practicing the strengths and maybe 3 or 4 months into working the strengths with clients, I felt myself shift and start seeing the world through the strengths lens. I mean, I think it's really that's a powerful moment where someone is being maybe what you would call a jerk. And you can see that they're overusing honesty or underusing fairness. And all of a sudden you flipped it from their bad behavior to their overuse or underuse of a strength. And there's just something so powerful about that internally. I think it's made me a more positive person, facilitator, leader. And I really love that. So it's been a gift to be able to practice this, I think, especially at this moment in the world. Just as Madeline said, I completely agree with that. So
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think I would emphasize, right, or even say, at this time in the world, right, of needing those strategies, needing those abilities to find connection, community to each other. That shift, what you named about the shift is so, so powerful. Being able to shift our perspective. So thank you for that, Meredith. And Joe, would love to ask for you to add. What are you thinking?
Well, I think that yeah, I did start using my strengths like by myself, and that's like kind of, it's the middle of a pandemic and I'm just really getting into all that. But like at least in my world, like when leaders talk to doctors, and I'm sure a lot of people might resonate with this, they always talk about how it's like the person's problem. And it's not really that. Most of the time it's like workplace culture or like workplace efficiency. And so I have to say that the workplace is at their best. Like its very premise is in the title, workplace is at their best. And then it kind of assumes that you're in a nurturing environment. And that just resonates so powerful with me because like you think that everyone kind of assumes it, but it like explicitly says, hey, we're going to take care of each other. We're going to nurture relationships. Here's a system to do that. And it happens to come with like really nice like exercises and handouts and stuff all put together, what makes it easy to implement. But like in the broad scheme of things, this idea that hey, we can take care of each other through this system is what really has resonated with the people I've worked with and why they seem to like it so much.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Joe, especially that call out to the systemic level, right? That how
Mhm.
do we create system-wide change versus thinking about individuals? And I think that's the heart of strengths, right? Is knowing and acknowledging and honoring that we all bring strengths to the table. And how do we create that as a system-wide? So thank you for that point. And I think our conversation is kind of leading here, but we've named how those kind of personal shifts are happening. I would love to know, is there a specific practice or is there something that really just resonated with you that you've seen that have, impact or something that you would offer everyone, of an example that has really just kind of, shifted that perspective. It could be personal or professional.
Yeah.
And oh, perfect. Thanks, Mobley.
With a comment that Meredith said about teams and spotting, I think that is truly important because some of the disconnect we see within organizations is that people are working in silos and not really as a team. But because we are consultants, we are facilitators and agents of change. And part of our responsibility is to challenge the status quo of the organization. If we are seeing that that is unhealthy or it's not being very useful to what the organization wants to accomplish, maybe what that team needs, it's the strength spotting exercise. I'm not aware at when was when it became politically incorrect to say nice things to each other in organizations. I mean, all of a sudden, we were not permitted anymore to be nice to one another. So strength give us a language that we can say, you know what, I really appreciated your perspective in the meeting. Thank you for your creative comment. We were stuck and we really needed that help in our marketing expectation campaign. Or thank you for your kindness. I was in a bad place. So it gives us like a structured, formal, official language that still is politically correct, that foments and helps with team building, and also allows us to spot unique contributions of our team members to build high performing teams within the organizations. So I think that that is real science taken into practice. Strengths-based science is real, it's practical, it's doable, and is very helpful within organizations.
Yeah, Mavalynne, I have personally been given a strength spot from you and felt the entire atmosphere of our meeting just shift so much for it was already positive and shift even more that way. So I felt the power of that myself personally. But I think the point that you made of there is a structure for it, right? And a specific structure to name not just what it is or the strength that you're noticing or witnessing, but also how did it positively affect or influence, right, and impact that moment. And that is what's powerful because that's actually positive feedback, right, in the moment. And that allows us to move forward, I think. So thank you for sharing that. And Meredith or Joe, I would love for you to jump in and what you're thinking.
I think there are two practices that I feel like I've seen be so helpful in a team. The first one, again, I was probably started out as a skeptic. I think the VIA team does a great job of offering a lot of tools, like little strengths exercises that you can use and embed in meetings to maybe kick things off or during an exercise. And I tried to stay true to it, even though, like the part of me that wants to get down to business is struggling with having everyone talk about a strength at the beginning of the meeting. But what I'd find happening after we've done that for a few meetings, the people are used to it, and there's a little grumbling from certain people, is that people continue sharing. Like they'll talk about their strength, and then they'll talk about something that happened to their daughter over the weekend, or they'll talk about it. It takes everyone to a more personal level where I feel like they can connect differently. I mean, I'm working with an organization where the CEO has shared that people had been so quiet in meetings. And I feel like the use of strengths consistently over time, just opening things up, has helped people connect differently. And there's just a different sensibility about how people are connecting in a meeting. The other thing is the use. So my very favorite tool of in the VIA catalog is the golden mean. So you may have seen that sheet if you're familiar with strengths, and it's really about the overuse and underuse of strengths. I talked a little bit about this for kind of seeing conflict and behaviors that might be bad through that lens. I think that is the one that I come back to all the time with groups. It's kind of naming that here are my hot buttons, and if there's a conflict, making sure that like you can always not joke about it, but it's like a lighthearted, objective language that you can use to say, okay, you overusing your honesty a little bit. Like we can all use it as. I don't want to make strengths a joke, but it's good in a group to have that kind of levity and to have a language for getting through tough moments or conflict in that way. So I think those two simple tools have been really helpful to me in terms of changing the dynamics in a group.
Yeah, and Meredith, what I love is humor is a strength, right? And can be
Right.
one that we lean into to bring what you said, that levity. And what I also heard though was that they're leading to so more generative conversations, right? And those more generative conversations can lead to more solutions and more connection. This is beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And Joe, would just turn to you.
Um, yeah, I like the golden mean thing. I use that on myself all the time to kind of figure out how my situation is going right or wrong. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But it's interesting. The culture of medicine is not great sometimes. And so I was string spotting someone because I've been doing that for a couple of years. I would just string spot them and affirmation it to kind of build relationship to kind of help ease the system, which works pretty good. And then anyway, so some people were struggling and I string spotted her and she stood up, sat up straight. I'm like, did you like that? I'm like, I know it feels hopeless, but I string spotted you and it's free and easy and you can string spot anybody. It doesn't have to be like institutionalized, like in the group meeting. And so then the two people I was talking to, they just string spotted me every time they saw me for the next few days, which was kind of fun. But in medicine, like our meetings are always about like what goes wrong, what goes wrong, what goes wrong. And like the nice thing about the workplaces at their best, I really feel like is it puts the focus on you can focus on the process and how to make it right and what's going right. And you actually get better outcomes, which is what Mavalynne was talking about, those high functioning teams. Like if you want the good outcomes, you got to actually focus on a different thing than everything going wrong, or it just feels like you're stuck. And so it's a nice roadmap forward.
Yeah, Joe, I heard that like loop, right? That you can get into kind of the negative loop that can continue to happen. And then how do you get to the point of what I believe Meredith said, which is that kind of generative place together as a group, or, people go quiet sometimes if they're not feeling safe, to be able. And so you need those points of connection, right? And Mavalynne, as you said, that impact that can happen from being able to shift the perspective and get to that place. So I really appreciate everyone sharing that. And I kind of want to start digging in even a little deeper. The participants that are joining us today actually submitted many questions for us. In fact, Sarah and I spoke today, and it's the most questions we've ever had submitted for a webinar. So thank you all. You're amazing. And we pulled those kind of questions together into different themes. And so I would love to just start off with, one of those themes that was submitted. And I would love to start with you, Joe, if that's okay. So the first theme was reclaiming meaning without burning out. And I know that this is an area you really focus on in your work. So many people in our group share that they're feeling overwhelmed or feelings of powerlessness. And so I wonder, how have you used character strengths in your workplaces at their best experience to help people regain a sense of agency and purpose without piling more on their plate?
That's a great question. I think that burnout's like a real thing, although I try to shy away from the word burnout by itself, but it can feel pretty easy that the system is kind of like working on you and you don't really have a lot of input into the system. So I do want to say that workplaces at their best, it's not going to solve like a huge culture problem, right? Like if there's like a huge culture problem where the team doesn't recognize how important it is to protect team members and stuff like that, then anyway, that I think foundational to it is people who are interested in workplaces that are best have already kind of said that they think relationships are important and they're trying to nurture that and build that. And so if you I guess if you find yourself in a situation where you're not sure how much agency you have, the nice thing about character strengths is you can work on it yourself or with some friends in a way that's not going to be confrontational to leadership and will actually probably be inspiring to people around you. So that's actually how I think a lot of people start. It's like, hey, this is what a nurturing relationship looks like. This is one way to build a nurturing relationship and recognize the worth that people are bringing. And then you bring strengths into that. And here's what strengths are. They're universal. And then I think that's kind of a way for many people when I've been working with them is like, hey, you can control how you talk to yourself and how you talk to other people, and you can prioritize how you value them and you value yourself. And that often is a very low cost, low risk way, I think, to start to move culture in the right direction, which has all these impacts on teams and efficiency. So I hope that kind of answered your question, but
Yeah, that's great, Joe. And I would invite Mavalynne or Meredith. Is there anything you would love to add or you were thinking about when Joe was sharing?
I mean, I think that I definitely had the same reaction to him about strengths and kind of building trust. I feel like strengths are a tool for building understanding, but they aren't kind of a magic solution for building trust in an organization. Um, it's interesting, even as I get deeply into strengths with groups, the same two strengths, different strengths can be synergistic in one pair of people who trust each other, and they can be a collision in another pair of people who don't trust each other. So there's the building of trust is kind of essential, and strengths can help with that. It's a language for building that understanding, but you do need to have a willingness on both sides to build that trust and take the steps to do that. So I don't want to represent it as a magic solution, but it is such a great tool for a group or team that's willing to work against that and to build trust to do so.
Yeah, I think Meredith, something you're bringing up, and Joe that you named, is that you need somebody to lead, right? In some capacity, you need a champion on your team that is willing to take that on, right? And sometimes it starts small. And I think this was already named before about sometimes it is in your locus of control, your influence to show how it works and how it can be effective on a team. And then once that team starts, seeing that impact, feeling those shifts and those changes, it now is being noticed by other teams who are looking for those kind of impacts and changes, right? And sometimes that is from the ground up that can happen. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And Mavalynne, I want to give you the opportunity, but to see if you have anything else also that you were thinking about.
Yes, and I think that we can also connect it to some of the questions I'm seeing in the chat of disconnect and perhaps fear of being authentic or speaking up, being honest, being real. And it is a true problem. It is a real problem. However, it always starts with us. We have to work through our self-limiting beliefs and all these ideas that we have that are unhealthy and useless that we have incorporated throughout our lives. And we need to unlearn that in order to really honor our essence, honor our strengths, and start applying ourselves in a meaningful way, on a purpose way, on purpose in our own role. So that will be like an example. But to the people who really want to make a difference in their organizations, that's why the tool of workplaces at their best is so valuable, because it's everybody on board and everyone, regardless of the evolution process that they're in, of their how reflective they had been, how much discernment they have, how much inner work they have performed on themselves. It's a teamwork, and it is a team approach. So it's easier to be able to be you when everybody else is trying also to be themselves. So everyone is learning this dance of giving and receiving in a respectful way, everyone growing together. And I also want to, another question that I saw there, how else can you apply the golden mean or the strengths? And a couple of years ago, I had a project that they wanted to rewrite their holy grail and wanted to incorporate signature and character strengths into performance reviews. And so how do you do that? Well, the beauty of it is that just because they're called strengths, it doesn't mean that that's the end of it. You know, you can always grow because either you over or underutilize your strengths, so you can always be better. And those strengths that you're not using that much, you can become more versatile if you pop them up more often. So that was a beautiful, beautiful work with this organization with 100 employees. So this work and this course will give you numerous resources that you can apply and take, and depending on the scenario, the industry, and the context that you need to work with.
Yeah, thank you, Mavalynne. And you actually pulled out another tool that's there, right? Our Strengths Compass that's in workplaces at their best for integrating strengths into performance reviews. And I think you just named beautifully exactly why that can be so impactful and help support the team as we were talking about. And our next question is actually tied into a question that was submitted in the chat right now. Savannah asked, when you say there needs to be a champion to lead the team, would you say this always has to be a supervisor? So, Meredith, I'm going to come to you with a question because this resonates, I think, with many questions that were submitted to us, which is, leading culture change, even if you aren't in a position of authority. So, a lot of people shared experiencing kind of challenge with rigidity or maybe even toxic workplace cultures. So I'm just wondering what strengths-based strategies or stories from your workplaces at their best work have kind of helped shift culture towards that trust and collaboration that we were sort of just speaking to, right? Especially when you're leading from either the middle or you're not in a formal leadership position.
Mhm. I'm of mixed mind on this because I do believe that culture change requires buy-in from people who have formal power in an organization. I mean, I think that is, I don't want to dance around that because I have not had good luck making culture change if the executive leader is not bought in. Now, I do think people can influence that from various levels. And I feel like strengths in particular can help galvanize people if they're living in a challenging or toxic culture. I think that understanding of yourself, what your hot buttons are, what's your top strengths are, and what you're able to manage easily and what can be more challenging, and then seeing someone else's behavior through the lens, that positive lens, can help manage that situation. But I don't know that I think strengths is kind of a silver bullet for someone who has less power influence in an organization to kind of change the game. I do think that using that language as a tool is really helpful. But I think that the power of strengths is probably individual in that situation, and helping each individual, kind of as Joe's talked about before, kind of understand their strengths, and see others through the lens of strengths. I think that's probably the most powerful role for strengths in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you, pulling back to that self-awareness, right, can be so powerful
Mhm.
for within influence, but maybe from that systems level change, right? It is really important to have that kind of allyship, or at least the general buy-in, right? The buy-in
Mhm.
from a leader, sure. Thank you for sharing that, Meredith. And Joe, Mavalynne, I'd love to invite you to add if you have anything.
Well, I was thinking that um like if the goal of the team is to take care of team members and you're doing that so the team can get the goal, um it's interesting. The workplace at their best does have like a lot of good tools for like deep discussions and things like that. I do find that like to have the good discussion, the first part is you have to like preserve the relationship. So in that context, you can like sometimes nudge the leader into like a good, you know what I mean? You can use your skills, combine it with the strengths to kind of nudge someone and preserve the relationship and say, hey, and then through that context, you can say, I need a little different type of support and things like that. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of what I was thinking when you said that. I've done that a few times.
I think and strengths can lay that foundation, right, for a trusting relationship,
Right. Yeah.
especially when you authentically know who you are and they authentically know who they are, right? Yeah, I see that, Joe. I hear that. And Mavalynne, I'd love to turn to you too. Do you have any thoughts around this, especially from that place of you might be coming in, right, as a mid-level team member hoping to institute something like this?
Mm, yes, I would be a little more assertive with this approach because, I mean, we all know the definition of insanity, and it is to do the same thing expecting different results. So, what is going on now? People are burned out, fatigued, disengaged. Organizations are not doing well. They're having lots of problems motivating their employees. So, if you're in a search of looking for something else, a new way of doing things, presenting an organization with an alternative, an option that will actually make your employees feel better, be happier, perform more, be more engaged, and have incredible results in your own organization in overall performance, why not try it? You know, it's just a no-brainer for me. And as I took the leap of faith, I took the course, and I've seen nothing but improvement in the people I work with, in myself, in my own business. So I think that this would give additional tools to these middle level managers or these people who perhaps don't have the formal authority to initiate change, but they can certainly take this option to the leadership team with, you know, all the statistics and all the research and all the science behind it, and say, you know what, why don't you try this, or why don't you get together with someone from the leadership team in Veeva so they can explain better what this is all about, and just give it a shot. I mean, we need to get creative, we need to be courageous, we need to help one another, not only just barely make it, but truly feel that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and helping each other feel that they are in the right place and performing the right role.
Thank you, Mavalynne, and I really appreciate that perspective. And also, one of the tools we have too is how to make that argument, right? How to make that messaging clear to your leadership team, and that is included in our workplaces at their best. So I think that you're right. There is a part of taking that chance, right, and pushing, and we also provide some of the tools, the science that backs up why it matters and why it's so important. I think the argument about the research is so compelling and, a little bit harder to discount. Um,
Hey,
so
Alicia,
yeah,
do you
Meredith,
mind if I
please.
revise my answer? As I was
Of
listening to
course.
Mavalynne speak, yeah, I mean, I think so. I don't revise the part at the beginning where I do think there has to be an executive sponsor of culture work. Like, I just feel like that has to happen. But I am working with a team of managers in a big organization. So they're multiple levels down from the top, and they are owning the strengths work in the organization, and it's midway through, so I don't have the results, but I see the traction happening even though the leadership team is not involved day to day. And I feel like what it takes is energy and humor, and they're instituting small practices. It's a big organization, 500, 600, and medium size, 500, 600 people. And they're instituting small practices that people like, about recognition and using the strengths that are easy, and they're building this. So I do think it's possible to lead from the middle. And I think you don't have to the executives don't have to be doing it, but they do have to be they have to be bought in. I do think that. So I just wanted to revise that because I felt like I seemed too negative about that because I've had too many stops and starts where executives aren't bought in. But I do think it's possible to lead this from anywhere as long as you have just one sponsor who is going to advocate. So
Thank you, Meredith. One, I want to just strength spot, honestly, humility in that moment, curiosity, right? Perspective, and honesty, truly, because I think that it's so real, and people I'm imagining on the call can honestly, absolutely relate to that of feeling that tension and knowing that it exists and is there. So thank you for sharing that as well. Um, I want to do one naming. I think Lisa asked in the chat, what do you suggest as meaningful metrics to demonstrate impact? And so I just wanted to name that also inside of our workplaces at their best, we include program benchmarks and an impact survey that is meant to not only from a leadership level, but from a staff level, look at the metrics, right, of that impact. And so just wanted to name that and I don't know if any of you would want to speak to that. I think Meredith, you have just done that recently with an organization. But that is what we utilize to help show that impact. So we're not just talking, feeling matters and it's so important, right, to create that safety, but we also recognize the necessity of the data as well. Okay, so I do have, and I'm looking at the time, I have one more question, and I would love to start with you, Mavalynne, if that's okay. But this is one other theme that was really submitted from participants, which was how do I make purpose practical and implementable? So, people shared that they feel disconnected from meaning, purpose in their day-to-day work. What simple strengths-based tools or habits that we haven't mentioned yet or that you've used might encourage others to use to help make that purpose more tangible or more actionable for them?
Yeah, that is such a pertinent and important and powerful question. So I would start by analyzing, the key word there is disconnect, meaning you're not connected. There's a disengagement. There's a clear disengagement between who you are, what is important to you, and what you're doing. So I don't know if you have ever asked yourselves, what is the definition of meaning and purpose to you? What does it mean to you? So if this is some food for thought, it is a perspective. So meaning emerges from within. It comes from your virtues, your values. And remember that VIA is virtues in action. So VIA speaks to the virtues that give meaning to who you are, the importance of what you are. And purpose is external, is how are you going to apply those virtues in the way of all these 24 characteristics to have an impact. So when you put the two and two together is you first need to know yourself, what is important to you and make sure that you are able to activate those things that are important in whatever you're doing. So you ask for a strategy. Something that has worked very well for my clients and for myself is to plan your next day the night before and be intentional about it. For instance, saying, okay, tomorrow I have a marketing meeting. I will definitely think about a couple of creative ways that I can contribute. Or I truly want to use my perspective tomorrow because there is this that I need to share, and I think that it's going to make a difference in this meeting that we are anticipating, the budget planning. I mean, whatever, but make it a purpose. Do it on purpose. And the other thing is that purpose is not like an aha moment that drops from the sky and all of a sudden you know why you're alive. It is something that you build as a path because of your repetitive actions of those things that make you feel good and make you feel energized on a day-to-day basis. So if you think of your life as meaningless and purposeless, it's extremely sad. I mean, nobody can live like that. So you truly, if you're feeling this, or if you have people like this in your organization, something needs to be done immediately, because you have to be full. You have to be strengthful, live a full life, a meaningful life. But that depends on you, because you are the master of your fate. And you have 24 strengths that you can apply to every single action. So you live a life on purpose.
Thank you, Mavalynne. And I love the suggestion of you can think of that purpose that you have, right? And think about your signature strengths or mid strengths or lesser strengths, right? That you want to toe up or utilize to really hit those tasks and find the meaning, the energy, right? That essential nature of what that is to find that purpose inside of it, that intention. That's a really beautiful suggestion. Thank you for that. And Meredith, Joe, I'd love to invite you for about a minute. Do you have anything you would like to add or any suggestions you have?
Yeah, I mean, I'm building on what Madeline said. I feel like in times of intense chaos and kind of stress in the world, refocusing companies and organizations refocusing on purpose and meaning, even when you can't be clear about other things, choices, plans, all these things, but refocusing on why we're here, what we're doing is super important. And one of my favorite tools from workplaces at their best, a really simple tool, but I found it very effective, is a tool where people are asked to take their strengths, their top five strengths, and kind of overlay them with the mission of their company or organization and think about why they're there and what they're bringing to that role. I mean, this takes 5 minutes. People share. People. I mean, people are really, I think, moved by it, honestly. I think we forget how much people need work to be more than a job. I mean, they need to feel and understand how they're giving back, adding value in any situation. And I think I love that simple tool from workplaces at their best to do that because I think that's one thing that can ground us just in a rapidly changing world right now.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Meredith, the grounding. I think that feels safe too, right? There's a
Mhm.
sense of security inside of that that would be so important in an ever-changing environment, right? Is finding that familiarity and that connection and engagement. Thank you for sharing that. And Joe, I'll just send it over to you.
Um, okay, thank you. When Mavalynne was talking, like, it just, we have a vision of ourselves, and that's our lens that we interpret the world. And we can choose a vision that makes us powerless, or we can choose a vision where we're responding to that. And so, for people that feel stuck, like you might feel stuck in your job, and maybe you are, maybe you can't move and whatever. But you can choose to bring yourself this vision to your workplace. And then I actually came to character strengths because I was trying to learn how to put myself into flow in the positive psychology literature, and character strengths is a way to do that. And then I'm like, oh, I can also do that to support my team. And anyways, you can sort of see how the vision thing snowballs into the way you can choose to use strengths or a curriculum like workplaces at their best.
I love that, Joe. Honestly, what I heard, the thread I heard here is the agency, right? That comes with really expressing your strengths, your character strengths, and just that there are so many different ways to be able to do that, to be able to create that kind of meaning inside of your work, and help support others with finding that meaning as well. I really appreciate that. And shockingly, time goes super fast. So I cannot believe it, but we're already coming towards kind of the conclusion of our time together. But these conversations always do this. They always move so quickly, especially when we're talking about strengths and what just really matters at work. And before we wrap up, I really want to ask each of you to share just one final reflection. What's a practice, a mindset, or an insight you'd encourage others in the call to try as we conclude our time together today? Let's start with Joe.
Well, I guess I would say that I think that if work teams are supposed to take care of each other, and your job as your teammates to figure out how to connect to and take care of the people around you, that's the mindset that I carry into work that makes me feel empowered. And then I use strengths a lot in that mindset to help me build those connections.
Beautiful. Meredith.
We've already said this a number of times, but it's literally spotting things that people are doing right, and lifting people up in a moment where I think a lot of people need that. I think we can't underestimate that right now in this moment. So I think that the formally strength spotting, or just seeing the positive in others whenever we can.
Thank you. Yes. And Mavalynne?
I believe that today has been a beautiful co-construction of knowledge and different ideas, even reading the questions in the chat that make us discern about certain things and be better. I think a perspective that I can offer is that organizations are abstract. I mean, you don't touch and you don't work with organizations. You work with people. We're only human. We're only human beings. We have feelings, we have emotions, and we have fears. But fears are fragile because they're easily broken with the power of strength. So if you're in the search of something else, if you're inquisitive, if you're curious, if you want to add something else to your toolbox and really have a robust set of resources to see how can you apply this even better, explore the course, explore workplaces at their best, because truly everyone and every organization deserves to be the best workplace, and they need us to make it happen.
It's beautiful too. And I think it hit one other question we had in the chat about, experiencing fear or worry in that way and how strengths can help you find that voice or think about how you can find the connection to create a safe environment, right? A safe culture together. And lastly, I just want to thank you, Meredith, Joe, and Mavalynne for sharing time with us today. You are just incredible humans, and I always enjoy being able to share space, time, and your expertise sharing with us today was just so valuable. And if you would like to continue this conversation, I have Meredith, Mavalynne, and Joe's LinkedIn handles up on the screen. I know they would appreciate connecting with you and carrying on the conversation as well. Before we leave, because we have a couple minutes, Meredith, Mavalynne, Joe, I'd invite you if you'd like to share any last words with everyone.
Just thank you for participating, and please do connect. We're here for each other.
Same. Thank you. It was fun.
Yes, thank you, everyone. And thank you for all the questions. I need to go back through the chat and kind of see what people are thinking about and feeling. And I welcome you sending any of those directly as well, and I can try and answer them.
Absolutely. And another thing we can do is we can collect those and make sure that we get them to you and then share them with the community. So if there was a question you had today that we weren't able to get to, please just send it in. We're happy to make sure that gets answered. But we greatly appreciate everyone's time, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and so appreciative to everyone for joining us. So thank you. And I can see already in the chat lots of people thanking you all and just for a really great conversation. So we appreciate everyone. And we will go ahead. And Sarah, I think that we will end the call for today. So